Welcome to the Thrasher Suite Radio Hour, where the feedback is back.
I come down from the misty mountain.
Every week we scour the human highway to bring you the best Neil Young news and reviews, rumors and musings, plus rare unreleased tracks and live shows that will keep you rocking in the free world.
It's all one song.
The Thrasher Suite Radio Hour is presented by WBKM.org in the heart of Burlington, Vermont.
Well, hello everyone. Tony here for another episode of Thrasher Suite Radio Video Hour. It's 2.0. We've got Thrasher, and we've got a special guest, our first ever guest. Thrasher, come in, Thrasher.
Hey, Tony, good to see you. And yeah, we want to welcome our special guest here. This is our guest is known as Lone Red Rider. We've known Lone Red Rider for a really long time. We went to a concert, a Neil Young concert in Nashville in 1999. This is really the first time that we're seeing each other in 20 some years here. And it's really great to see you, wow. Lone Red Rider.
Thank you, Thrasher, and thank you very much, Tony. It's great to be here. Like you know, to Thrasher we go. Even though we've only met each other face to face once, we've got a long history in the Neil Young fandom together.
Definitely, yeah. And I know we were catching up a little bit here before we started recording, and it was great. And I really want to, share some of our great Neil Young experiences here with the archives. And as you said, we've had a lot of history here. We've gone back quite some time, to the Blu-ray days, if not before that, the Volume 1. But why don't you tell our listeners, viewers out there, some of your involvement with this and interest in the, I'll say, the architecture, design, and technology of the archives, and then we'll dive into some sampling.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been actually a topic of real deep interest of mine for, going back to years before the first archive release came out. Going all the way back to the late 70s, Neil has been teasing this huge unreleased vault of material that he's had. He once famously referred to as that he's saving all his best material for his Bus Crash album. So then, I found myself waiting for when is that going to come? And then in the 80s, when we were kind of going through that strange period where Neil was adopting various personas, being the Kraftwerk kind of computer guy or the everybody's rock and rockabilly cat. When he went through that period, he said, well, there's more to the picture than meets the eye here, that there's more to this story than what I've shared. And he's going to elucidate that to everybody on Decade 2 when he releases it. So you can sort of see over time, he's had this idea in his head that he's got this concept of a curated history that he's going to share with the world. And then it eventually became this archival project. Right, and so we've had to wait a long time for this. When it was finally released in 2009, it was finally realized as a Blu-ray concept where Neil was able to share his music in high resolution. And so this is very key because, since the mid-90s, Neil has been a real proponent of improving digital sound. He would always decry the loss that we've had in our listening experience and going from vinyl to digital, and how going to these higher resolutions is absolutely crucial. So Blu-ray offered that. It offered 24:192 resolution, which is considerably more data than a CD. But beyond that, it also offered the ability to share video and other archival content while you're listening and experiencing the music. So, you imagine you're listening to a vinyl record, you've got the cover in your hand, you can read all of the credits, you can look at all the great artwork. Well, Blu-ray was the way we're apparently going to be doing this in the modern age. And so he had this concept, this design of, expressing his music in a matter of days along a timeline. And so, we sat there on this Blu-ray vision for a while when Archives Volume 1 came out, and then there was another 10 years when we were waiting for Archives Volume 2 to come out. And throughout that whole time, we sensed that the gears in Neil's mind were turning, and that he wasn't quite satisfied with what he had put out, and that, maybe there was a more practical way to do it. And of course, there's the internet and streaming, and much more friendly ways of viewing archival content than just clicking through on your remote control on a Blu-ray trying to find things. And so ultimately, as has been talked about significantly in this podcast, NYA has come out. And so when NYA came out, I think that the major mindset shift was all of a sudden Neil had gone from being a guy who had 100% control in his head of what he was going to do, to actually starting to listen to the fans a little bit through the NYA platform and the letters to the editor platform, and absorb ideas on what really the fans want and the type of content the fans would want to see. And this is a huge change, right, in how Neil has related to his fans over the years. It was always, he had the vision that was stuck in his head, and he was going to do it that way, hell or high water. But interestingly, watching the archives evolve over time, and there's some things we're going to talk about here, a lot of it really comes from fan input. And that's what this website platform has achieved. So that's sort of, my history with it and how I've seen it evolve over time.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome, Lone Red Rider, all that history and background, and I hope we can dive into that I will say in the future. But as you mentioned, this fan input, and Tony, I think we've talked about this a little bit here, but the fan input, and then specifically the fan input that you yourself provided around these concerts, and Tony, we've talked about this a little bit here about some of these concerts, and we featured some of them in the past.
Thrasher, just what was it, 2 weeks or so ago, I guess we took a look at that live stuff from a Blue Notes show, something that I hadn't heard before, and that was fantastic. And what a peek into that past, and melding, what Lone Red Rider just said about how all of that evolved from the day when, as typical, Neil was getting ahead of time, waiting for a thing that wasn't going to be invented for quite a while yet, and yet putting it all together for that eventual thing that would come that would be better than the Blu-ray. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. And I think this is probably a really good time for us to, take a look at the archive site and, navigate through a couple of these concerts here with our special guest here. So I think I need to get the screen share enabled here.
Yeah, you're all up.
Okay, very good. All right, so here we go. All right, so Lone Red Rider here, our special guest. You guys can see the archives there, up there on the screen.
Big and large and made of metal. I like it.
All right, so one of the things we like to do sometimes here, Lone Red Rider, is we just love the cutting edge filing cabinet technology, and we just kind of love to just click on this thing and watch it do its thing.
What a sound that made.
Yeah, it sounded like a filing cabinet. All right. So why don't you tell us if we wanted to hear one of these performances of the weeks, or please, Lone Red Rider.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this is an amazing feature. You've kind of touched on it in the past. If you go ahead and click Performance of the Week, it will bring you the most recent thing that's been posted, which is a wonderful show from the Blue Notes that was recorded in 1988 in Toronto. And, this is a show that I've got a lot of fond memories of listening to a tape of going, way back when I was in school. Very popular bootleg. I believe this was professionally recorded for the radio, so the sound was outstanding. And the volume of unreleased songs in the show is just staggering. Neil was getting into a new period with horns, but he also had a lot of really new, compelling songs here that were just great from a songwriter's perspective. So this is one of the really great ones.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Go ahead, Tony.
To see, just a quick perusal. Seeing Ordinary People as done by the Blue Notes. I'm loving that live. Wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, it definitely sounding great. Well, in terms of a track here to check out, what do you think there, Lone Red Rider?
Well, we talked about how clunky it is to find these things, but number 9, 60 to 0 is an especially compelling track. It's long, it's Dylan-esque, and it's an unreleased track. So yeah, some might recognize this as having evolved into Crime in the City, which was released on one of my personal favorite albums, Freedom.
Cool. All right. Well, let's. What do you think here? Give it a shot. See if we can get this thing going here, guys.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Play this show.
Okay. So we got our intro audio stuff, but we're gonna try and find this.
Can't keep those horns down, can you?
All right. So I think this is somewhere in here that we're going to try and get this 60-0, as Lone Red Rider was saying. You got to slide this thing across here to cue it up, because they don't really have the exact tracks here. Is that right there, Lone Red Rider?
Yeah, that's right. So this whole show is basically presented in one single long track.
All right. So yep. And this track that we're talking about here, number 9, 60-0, is I don't know how long is this thing going to be? We're not going to play the whole thing, but it's epic, right?
It's an epic 18-minute, something like 11 verses.
Yeah, this is like the full deal, guys. All right, see if we can get this thing happening here. Whoa, looks like we might have got it.
The anticipation is building in the crowd. You see, the crowd has no idea at this point what they're going to get. None of them have heard this.
How you doing?
They're setting up their chairs. Neil's got an acoustic guitar. Ben Keith is perched right next to him. You can picture it.
Yeah, because they're coming out of the acoustic set, right? Like, because right before it is after the gold, or right before it, after the gold rush. Yeah. So it's a whole band change, I think, that we've got here. And I guess they know that they're getting ready to launch into an 18-minute song. So
you got to get comfortable. They need their chairs. There we go.
Champs and the heroes, they got a price to pay. They go from 60 to 0 in a split of a hair. They see the face in the window, they feel a shadow out there. They got the places they can't go, they got the people who stare. They gotta walk in their shoes, they gotta see what they see. got the people around them getting too much for free. All the pimps and the dealers, all the food they can eat, all the screamers and squealers when they walk down the street.
So I'm going to suggest we try and get a little bit further down on the track when this thing just cranks out here. So we'll see how we do.
Meanwhile, somebody get me a cheeseburger, huh?
Yeah, right. You guys can ad-lib some lyrics. So let's see where we land here.
Yeah. That's a great sound. I love hearing that.
Life without parole. Wish I never put the hose down. Wish I never got old.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So much to hear in that, in these live versions. Rick Rosas' bass, what he does. I mean, you don't hear that stuff on the albums. You know, when these guys are live, it just kills it. And what a
that
great
was just that was just fantastic, and that that tie-in, 60-0 means the subtitle of Crime in the City, which is part one. How this blends together. What a treat to hear that elongated story that you don't get to hear in Crime in the City or Freedom. Wow.
Yeah, definitely, guys. There's so much history, and as I was listening to this thing, how this is the acoustic version and how it rocks. And then of course you compare it to the electric version. I mean, we could do a whole program just on this song, all the variations and the lyrics and the band. And it's a great track. And I believe that we're going to see some video of this sometime. I know with the Weld stuff, I think the Weld series is going to have some live full Crime in the City stuff.
Wow.
Is that ring any bells?
Yeah, he only did the full length one on this Blue Notes tour. And on the Well tour, that's the first time we heard that song be turned into like a real compact power rock thing. But I think that one was only about 5 of the verses, but amazing in its own right. And I can't wait to see all of that stuff on that Weld series.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so much to look forward to. But so we just really kind of hit the first verse and the last verse. That was sort of serendipitous that we somehow managed to do that, but basically squeezed down a 18-minute song or whatever it was. But everybody should definitely check that out. Get your stereo all cranked up. All right, well, that was one of them. So why don't we move to another one here, Lone Red Rider, another one of these performance things. But I think just maybe give us a little background about, again, sort of how this kind of came about from your perspective of the, you were talking about the fan input and into the website. And I know this is something that you really championed and drove to make happen.
Yeah, let me talk about that. I mean, my part wasn't really huge, but the big thing is that Neil was starting to listen to the fans' requests for these concerts. Now, one of the things, Neil has been very tight with over time is when he releases a live concert, he's very careful about what he puts out. I mean, you'll notice in the performance series that was launched about a decade and a half or so ago, he would never put out a whole concert, right? He'd take a show, he would edit it down, he would pick the best performances. Sometimes he would do tour compilations. And he was pretty vocal to say, that the control that he has over what he releases is fairly tight. And for us never to expect the model that maybe a Pearl Jam or another band has of just throwing a whole tour out there, okay? With the advent of the NYA site and all the fans engaging in with him and asking for this show or that show or this unreleased recording, he's opened up quite a bit and he's gotten a lot more open to this. And so a while ago, he decided that he's going to create an area on his site where fan requests are going to be serviced out to the community. And so that in itself is a huge opening up of what Neil did, or what his mindset and what he was willing to give is really open wide up. But then, things sort of got stuck there and none of us were seeing any progress. So I got in touch with Neil and I gave him a simple recommendation. I said, hey, Neil, you're looking to put this on some other section of the site. Why don't you just play into the site's strength and use a part of the site that's already there and it's great and maybe it's a little underutilized. And I pointed him to the timeline and I noticed that, you've got these little bars, they look like barcodes, they represent the various tours that Neil, that you've performed in, but they don't really do anything. You can't click them, you don't get a lot of information. It would be great if you could click on one of those, get the whole tour itinerary, and maybe that's where you might want to think of putting these things that the fans are requesting. So I gave him that idea through his fan letter engagement. And he sent me a really nice reply saying, hey, you really helped get me unstuck. We had no idea how we were going to do this, but this seems like it's going to work. And so, that was my little part in there. It just, I pushed the marble over the cliff is the way I thought about it. And now all of a sudden, all this music is flowing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Go ahead, Tony.
No, just really, really fantastic and to be listened to. We are all sometimes, I share Neil's birthday, 10 years apart. Scorpios are difficult to move from what they think ought to be. And, but sometimes we figure out some way to do it. And really, I think from a fan perspective, which you are certainly, as we all are, a great fan of the work, very rewarding to have Neil sit back and say, well, maybe my vision should be a little bit different. Maybe I should listen to somebody else's idea. So hats off to you for suggesting it and for Neil for listening.
Yeah, definitely. Great summary there, Tony. Thanks. And I'll just echo that by saying, I think for the really dedicated Neil Young fans, it is about that live concert experience and that live concert experience from start to finish, not the cherry picked live album sort of approach that you mentioned there, Lone Red Rider.
Yeah.
So how about maybe we find another show to check out? Any thoughts there, Lone Red Rider, about what we might want to do?
Yeah, let's do it. So, playing to the strength of picking shows that have great unreleased tracks, why don't we go back to let's go to the timeline now. So this will be an exercise in finding this thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really what we want to try and capture here for our listeners, viewers here, about how you find these things. How many of them do you think are up here?
Well, so there are 11 that have been posted. And by the way this has been laid out, again, the casual fan still complains about this. Why can't they just have a list of all the shows that you can select? But if you try to jump into Neil's head, he sort of likes to have things in a context where you can see how a particular tour or an album fits into the history of other things. So that's gets to the whole organization of the timeline, right? And how there are stories and videos and things like that. But anyway, that's a bit of a digression. If you glide back on the timeline to 2001, you'll be able to find this wonderful show.
Okay, yeah, so we're doing a little timeline navigation down here, you know, doing our time travel thing. All right, so I think we're back to 2001 now, right?
There you go.
Remember that analog time machine from the Crazy Horse
Yeah.
tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can you zero in on, well, what happened around then. The Buffalo Springfield box set came out. Neil was getting ready to make Are You Passionate? So if you look at the barcode just under the Buffalo Springfield box set, you'll see that there is a little white snowflake-like icon that sort of indicates that there's something to be seen on this tour. Okay, so that's what you need to look for, is that little white thing. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, you know, folks, we're going to have to really lean forward here on our video and magnify things. Actually, doesn't this blow things up down here in the lower right? Yeah. So this is your zoom in, zoom out. Again, I think this is a feature that people aren't really tuned into, but it becomes a more visible, right? You can see that a little bit better. I see Tony like staring in there, right?
It looks like a transistor or something. I don't know what that is, but
yeah. And you were saying this barcode thing. And what are we looking at here? All this little barcode stuff?
Yeah, so the length of that bar is the duration of the tour, and all the little dark marks are the shows in there.
Okay.
Although
All
I'm
right.
not
Yeah.
sure anything is clickable in that zoom mode. You can try it, but I think you have to zoom out to, oh, you can do it.
Yeah.
Do it. All
All
right.
right. So just by clicking there, you get this thing to pop up. And again, it's not like you would hover over this and really know that. So so it shows up here on the timeline, July 20th, which is right in here. But if you look at that thing, it's actually, you know, somewhere else. But anyway, all right. So there's the itinerary, right?
Yep.
There's the itinerary. And okay, so now we've opened the itinerary and people go like, okay, well, where is it?
Sure.
So I guess you scrolled over here.
Yeah, you go down. So this is a world tour, right? It's a USA, South America, Europe, and Japan tour. And this show is in Stockholm, Sweden. And you can see that something's there, given that there's a log you can click and a user request check that you can click as well. That check mark takes you to the actual note that somebody had sent to Neil when they actually originally requested the show. And so that's nice, right? Because
yeah, that is great. I had not realized. Okay, so this guy Lars, what do you think happened here? He wrote in this letter and they loaded it up, right?
Yeah, you see that blue box at the bottom that says submit a request? Well, if you're a member and you click on that, you can request a show and you can write a little message, you know, describing why is the show special to you? What do you remember from the show? And if you give Neil permission, he will take that note and attach it to that show for you. So it strengthens that artist-listener connection, right? Really cool. Really cool of Neil to do this.
Yeah. So it's like, thank you, Lars.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is really, you know, I mean, Tony, I know we talk about this that every day on this site, you know, you learn something. So, all right. So we go and now click here for the actual show, right? Okay. And so we got it. And as you said, it's the world tour. Look at that, Tony. Look at all these US, South America, Europe, Japan. Like you said, it's all over the place.
Beautiful.
All right.
No excuse missing any of this tour. Anybody, wherever you live in the planet.
All right. Well, we got what is this? 18 tracks or something. What do you think, Lone Red Rider? What about this tour 2001 might we want to sample here?
Yeah, so it was a special tour. Neil, you know, back in those days, he would often preview live things that he hasn't yet released. And so this tour is no exception. So you can find a couple of those songs right in the middle, starting at 12, track 12, Standing in the Light of Love, and then Gateway of Love. Both of those were recorded by Crazy Horse for the legendary unreleased Toast album in San Francisco. So very cool versions of these songs live here, if we can land on those.
All right. Yeah, the famous toast. Yeah, everybody's heard about the toast thing. All right. Well, we'll see, just like we did a moment ago, see if we can actually cue this thing up properly and see where we can land. So looks like we got the show playing here. Got some crowd sound. So I guess we'll try and drag this on down into somewhere in here and see where we land. All right. So what did that sound like? Any guesses what that was?
Gosh, that almost sounded like the
Maybe it was after the
end of
gold.
Gold.
Anyway.
That was the end of Gold Rush. So if you
Okay.
move forward a little
All right.
bit.
So a little bit further down. All right.
Doesn't matter who you are or who you're not. All it takes is a little love to make a handout worth a lot. Swimming in the deep blue sea, marching in the long parade. Underneath is a little shade, standing in the light of love. Standing in the light of
Love that. Billy's bass is so up front, and you can hear Pancho and Neil doing those parallel guitar lines. Love it.
Mm. Mm. We love our Pancho. We love them all, right? We love our Pancho. And well, those interactions, some of the greatest things that we've ever seen musically, all across the spectrum, have been those duets, those pairings that bring out the best in everybody. There's a great image right there.
Oh yes. Remember that tour?
The horse. I was trying to pull that up while we were playing it. Didn't quite get there, but anyway, yeah. So I think we can start maybe wrapping all this up. This has been a really tremendous, breakthrough here for Thrash Sweet Radio and WBKM of bringing in a special guest, and we really hope to bring in some more Rusties. I don't think I've actually quite articulated that during the program. I'm not sure how we managed not to, call out our esteemed Rusty archivists and experts and so on, but we'd like to get some more out there. And so if you are listening and you are interested in sharing some of your Rusty Neil archival experiences, we'd love to have you on here, wouldn't we, Tony?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've learned a lot from our esteemed first guest and the community, the world, the village. There's a lot of good stuff out there, a lot of great information out there. So we look forward to hearing from more of you.
Yeah, definitely. So Lone Red Rider, just a few more closing thoughts here, and then we'll toss it back to Tony and wrap it up here.
Yeah, sure. Well, gosh, first of all, let me thank both of you. What a privilege and an honor it is to be here among fellow fans. And, the show has been doing great things for a while. So very happy to see 2.0 has taken flight. and we'll keep it going. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, we're glad to have you. And Tony, remind me again, why is it that we do this?
It goes back to Mr. Crosby, because we feel like we owe it to someone. There's a lot of someones. We owe it to our good friend here, our new friend in the video world, Lone Red Rider, and we owe it to a lot of folks in this great community, in this great time that we've been able to live through. And I'm always going to say thank you, Amit.
All right. Well, keep on rocking in the free world there, Lone Red Rider and Tony, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds great. Everyone, we look forward to having you take a look at this show and the previous ones, and to come back again soon for another episode. And where does it go? We'll find out when we get there. Thanks, everybody.